Okay, so let's get started. There are a few things that we can do that are, relative to this puzzle, relatively simple, relatively straightforward. And the place that I start is right in this area. We've got the 0 facing a 6, and if the 0 was right, then the 6 would have to be right, but there wouldn't be any way to get the 6, so the 0 must be wrong, and so I'm going to draw. That's not the color I meant to draw, and I can't change colors now. I'm too confused. Okay, so that's got to be a crate. We don't know where it's coming from yet, but it's got to be a crate. So that's one of the relatively easy deductions. The next one involves these 3 clues. And if the 0 on the left was correct, then both the 0 and the 3 would also have to be correct, and there can't be any crates in between them. And so they can't possibly do that. And so that means that the 0 on the left must not be true. So it's got to be covered by a crate, which means that the 0 on the right also can't be true. Okay. Okay, now I want to turn my attention to this 5 here. And the first question is let me see, how do I want to say this? Well, yeah, so let's just look at how could it be true? If that 5 were true, then we'd have to have boxes, crates in all of these positions, which means that the top of those crates would have to have come from above, which means that this 6 would have to also be true, and that's no good. Okay, so wiping all that out again, if the 5 were going to be true, then the 6 above it would have to be true as well, and they can't both be true. So the 5 is false. Now, where does that 5 come from? If it came from above, obviously it doesn't come from the left. So I'm talking about this crate. So it can't come from above. Why not? Because that would mean that the 6 was true, which would mean that the N underneath that crate would have to also be covered by a crate, which could only come from the bottom, at which point the 6 is all screwed up. So the 5 doesn't come from above. Now, here is where it gets mean. I'm about to argue that that this crate cannot come from the right. And first I'm going to do it without showing anything, and then we'll walk it through.
I just got here. Sorry.
Hi,
hello. What was the reason we have the crates over the 0s?
The first one because the left-hand one because it can't make both the right-hand one and the 3 be true at the same time with no crates in between them. And once it's false, the other one has to be false. All right, I'm going to move on, and you can look at the recording later if you need to. So I'm going to argue that this crate that's circled in purple cannot come from the right. If it did, then that 5 right clue would have to be true, which means that the B and the O and the 4 left and the I will all have to get covered by crates. Okay, what's the problem? Let's look at the B. That B can't be covered from below because that one, do I need to do something first?
Hey, Pavel.
I do. Yeah,
Pavel?
Sorry.
Quick question. When you're describing sections of the grid, can you point to them with your mouse?
I wish I could, but I don't have a mouse. I have a stylus, and it doesn't do that for reasons.
Oh, you're on a tablet. Got it.
So, yeah, I'm working on this.
No worries.
Hang on 1 second here. Let me, I'm going to, oops, that's not what I meant. You know, I just can't do it that way. I'm going to, I'm going to not do what I said I was doing. I'm going to do a couple of other deductions first. I got this wrong. Okay, so we've done this little bit in the center, and now I'm actually going to turn my attention to the upper right corner. In particular, the very upper right corner, that square. Okay, we've got this 2 and 1 clue to the left of that. They can't both be true, obviously. If neither of them was true, that is to say, if both of them were covered by crates, then the 0 would also have to be covered by a crate, and there would be no way to get that crate onto the 1. So they can't both be covered by crates. They can't neither be covered by crates because they can't both be true. So exactly one of them is going to be covered by a crate. If it's the 2, then we're going to have crates on both the 1 and the I. And if it's the 1, then we're going to have a crate on the I, which means there's always a crate on the I. Okay, so there goes our crate. Now, where could it come from? It can't come from the left because that would make both the 2 and the 1 true. So it must come from below. So I'm going to put a green spot there to say that space is now empty. And I don't like that one. Let me try this again. And there's our box moving. And that means that the 4 is true and the 1 is true. And so I circle the ones that are known to be true. Okay. Well, that 4 is interesting. Could the 4 at the bottom, this 4, hello, that 4, could that be false? Well, if it were covered from above, then there would be no way for the 4 at the top to be true. And if it were covered from the left, then it would make the 0 true, except the 0 would then be false. So we get that the 4 has to be true. All righty.
Can you do that a little slower one more time?
I sure can.
The part about the 0 got a little confusing.
Okay. So let me go back. We'll go into purple mode. If it were covered from the left, like that, then the 0 clue would be passed over, would have to be true, but there's now a crate where it's pointing. So it would be both true and false.
I see. So, you're talking about covered from the left, meaning where did the box come from?
That's what I mean.
Got it. That logic makes sense. Cool.
Okay, great. All right. So it's not covered. So it must be true. All right. Now, part of what's going to go on here, well, let me make one more deduction before we get to that. Okay. So we have a 4 down that sees it, so it sees 4 crates, and we have a 4 up that sees almost all the same stuff and sees 4 crates. one of those crates is behind the top clue. It's that very top crate. So there can only be 3 between the 4s, 3 crates between the 4s, which means that the top 4 has to see one more crate, and it must be at the bottom. So we get that. And again, where did that crate come from? It can't come from above, because that would make both 4s impossible to satisfy. So it must come from the left. So tap on the left. There's that. Sometimes I just cannot get it to draw my... Okay, then we get... So the 7 must be true, and the 2 must be true. Okay, now, one of the qualities, as it were, of this puzzle is that it is full of partial deductions that are difficult to notate, that are crucial. So I'm going to go in here with my highlighter, and I'm just going to say, look, I need 3 of these 4 to be in the rightmost column, because that's the only ones who could make the 2 4s satisfied. Keep that in mind. That's what that swipe means. It means there's a demand on those guys, and I haven't got room to write exactly what I get out of that. But that's what we're looking at. Okay, now I can come back to where I was. Okay, we're going to turn our attention back to this crate that we have placed in the middle. And where did it come from? We've already argued that it can't come from above, because that would make the 6 down true, and there'd be no way to get the crate onto the N underneath the purple circle. And it can't come from the left, because there's another crate in the way. And I'm about to argue that it can't come from the right. That is to say, it can't be covered by this crate. Okay, if it did, and I'm going to run through this without drawing anything first to give you a sense of the kind of depth of look ahead that we need to do. I think it's possible for folks to do, but it's going to take some care. And then I'll do it with the purple. Okay, so if that crate in the middle came from the right, then we would need crates in all of B, O, 4, I, and the rightmost column. All of those would have to be on in order to make the 5 right clue correct. In particular, let's look at the crate that would have to cover the B. It's got to come from above or below. It can't come from below. If it did, that 1 down clue would have to be correct, and it couldn't be satisfied. So the B would have to come from above, all the way up there in the second row. That would make the 2 right clue have to be correct. All right, so what's wrong with that? We have 3 more boxes that we have to fill in, the O, the 4, and the I. Because of the 2 right clue, only one of those boxes could come from above. And because of the 4 up clue in the rightmost column, we can only get one of them from below, because he needs 3 out of those 4 yellow ones to go. So we need 3, the O, the 4, and the I, but we can only get 2. Therefore, that middle crate can't come from the right. Okay, now, show of hands, as it were. How many folks followed that in their heads? Or failed to, either way.
I followed a lot of it, but I think that it shows at least the sense of the depth that you need to go to, and that helps.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the level of challenge of this puzzle in general.
Yeah, Bob, you lost me when you were describing what happened at the 2 right.
Yeah, that's also where I got lost.
Okay, so now let's do it in purple. So
yeah,
what
there
we're
was a
saying,
sense of like it sounded like you were saying that this part of the deduction was pretty clear to see, but I did not see it.
right. No, I get that. This is certainly one of the hardest deductions. So, yay, we're almost over the hardest part, but it's got plenty of hard parts, so that's fine. So I'm going to run through it in purple. So the hypothesis is that this comes that way. So therefore, the 5 is true. So therefore, we have boxes here, 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 and we need to keep that one. Okay. I'm going to focus on the leftmost one, this one. Okay. It can't come from below because that would make the one down. Come on. That would make this one down clue have to be correct, and there's no way for it to be correct. So it doesn't do that. Oops. So therefore, it comes from above, and the 2 has to be right. Now, what the 2 therefore needs 2 boxes in the KEV row. And so it can only spare one of those 3, these 3 boxes. Right, they're the only ones who can actually help to satisfy the 2. So he's only got 1 to spare. Down here, out of those 3 boxes, only 1 can be spared. The other 2 are needed for this 4. So we can only get 1 from above and 1 from below, but we need 3. So 2 is less than 3, and so we lose.
Yeah, okay, clearly Ada has lost her mind.
So there's going to be a lot of counting in this puzzle.
Okay.
And so it's really a good idea to get comfortable with the counting.
And maybe do it in dry erase. Gosh.
Yep.
I guess that this is just commentary, but it's not so much that I couldn't follow your logic because I followed what you did. But as somebody said a minute ago, you look at this entire grid and the depth that I could go to in 100 different places on this grid to try and understand what's going on. And I played with those numbers in that area, and I obviously did not get to where you got.
Yeah, totally understandable.
So many places I could go that deep.
Yeah.
To try and find a way in.
I've often said that difficulty in these puzzles comes from 2 sources. Either the deductions themselves are difficult, or the available deduction density is low. This puzzle combines those 2.
Yeah.
So, yay.
With brutal results.
I don't think I could ever characterize Ada as brutal, but mean, maybe mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vicky has it possibly correct. Just a little.
What was that? I didn't see the chat. There we go.
Oh yeah, in the chat she just said
evil. Evil is good too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she'd be okay with the word evil.
I guess as a general question, like it sounds from the cackling that I'm hearing from Pavel's side, it sounds this kind of depth is what we'll need for several points in this.
Yeah, I think this is probably the single deepest, and a lot of what we just did we will reuse again and again to solve the right-hand side. So that little gnarly bit of cluing is going to get reused, I think, at least 3 or 4 times in solving the right-hand side. So once you've done it, the investment pays off. But it's
still other suggestions of notation. Like
you're seeing my best notation. You're seeing the best I've come up with for notation. So
that's always the struggle with the harder ones.
Yeah, and indeed, I think that's a piece of what makes a deduction difficult, is that all of your partial steps can't be written down in the obvious way. So, Again, as Vicky said, evil. All right. So moving on.
I think I'm gonna head off. This has helped at least get a sense of the scope of this one. So
okay. Good luck.
I'm gonna head off, but it was great to hear you chat about this, Pavel. I might watch the video later.
Okay. Thanks for coming.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Okay. So remember, we're talking about this crate. We've just proven that it can't come from the right, and it can't come from the top. We talked about that. So it must come from below, which sounds like the name of a horror movie. It came from below. And so it does that and makes this one true. That clue that just turned true won't be significant for quite a while, but it's important later. Okay. Now, there's another set of things that we're going to need to work on here. I want to talk about this 6 clue down here. We have a 7 clue that's in line with it. And so either if this 6 clue is going to be true, we're going to need a crate over the A right there. And if the 6th clue is false, we're going to need a crate over it, which means we're going to need one of those 2 squares to be crated. Furthermore, it has to come from above. So those crates are going to be spoken for. One of those 2. Could be both, but at least one of those 2 crates is going to have to come down and fix the 6, either by making it true or by making it false. Okay? So that's one thing I wanted to point out. Next thing I want to look at is this 1 here. If this 1 was true, there's already a crate way over at the right. So if it's true, there are no other crates in this rest of this row. Well, that would mean that we can't do what we just said. We would have to have both the 6 be uncovered and the A be uncovered. So this 1 can't be true. Bye-bye 1. Now, he could come from above or from the left, and it will be a long time before we know what happened there. But there has to be a crate there. Okay, given that crate, we can now turn our attention to this 6. If it was true, I would need crates all the way down this line. But in particular, putting a crate on the P would be difficult. If it came from above, we wouldn't have crates all around, and it can't come from left or right. So that can't be done. So the 6 must be false. So we put a crate there. Okay. Now is the second exciting part. We have what we need to consider the 8. Suppose that the 8 was false. Then it would need to be covered by a crate. That crate could not come from above, because that would imply that the 6 was also true. Or sorry, that the 6 was true, and it can't be true now. In fact, I can prove that the 6... Why don't we just do that? This 6 has to be covered up. There's no way for it to be satisfied. So we'll just get rid of him. Okay. Now, if this 8 was going to be covered, it would have to be covered by, oops, wrong color. It would have to be covered by this crate. Okay. Well, we're back over in that area again, ladies and gentlemen. So let's think about it. If the 8 was covered from the right, then the 4 would have to be correct. If the 4 is correct, then we're going to need a crate on each of B, A, 1, and S. The B can only come from above, so the 2 will have to be correct. And once again, we will need 3 more crates, but we can only get 1 from above and 1 from below. I'm going to do that in purple now. So if this crate comes over to fill this, then I need crates here, 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 and here. The leftmost of those crates can't come from below because it would make the 1 true, which can't be satisfied after that. And so it would have to come from here, which makes the 2 true, which means that the 2 needs 2 of those 3 crates, so it can spare at most 1 to fill the row. It would need 1. It would need 2 more from below for the yellow streak below, but it can only get 1 from the yellow streak below, and so it can't be satisfied. So oops. So the 8 can't be covered. That means the 8 is true. Well then, if the 8 was true, since the 8 is true, we have a total of 9 squares to fill with 8 crates. Let's see. How to
we know the 4 isn't one of those, right?
Well, I think we can do it.
Sorry, we know the 4 isn't true.
Right. I think we can actually prove even better than that, that the false one has to be one of these 2. Okay. And again, this is reusing that same piece of logic. If both, I'll keep that there. If both of these are true, let me think here.
Do you mean uncovered?
Yes.
Or do you mean covered?
Sorry, covered is what I mean. Thank you very much. If both of these are covered, right, let me do this in order. The order is always tricky here. I'm going to back away from that. Suppose that the uncovered one was one of those 4. Then all of these 5 would have to be covered, and that gets us exactly into the logic that we were just looking at. This crate would have to stay where it is. The B would have to be covered from above. We'd need 3 more for the A, the 1, and the S. We can only get 1 from above and 1 from below. Okay, so we know that we can't have the uncovered one be one of these 4. So those are going to be all covered up. Okay. So we can get them all in one fell swoop. And while we're here, we can do some stuff. We know that one of them, whoops, that's not the notation anymore. We know that this crate is going to have to be the one to cover him because it can't come from anywhere else. So that gives us that 1. The rest of them could come from other places, so we won't worry about them. Okay. Now, let me see. I want to get back to this, but I can't remember if I have everything that I need yet. What else could I get? Did I mention that this is a hard puzzle?
So I think you're in the right place. If those are both covered, the B has to come from above, and then we can reuse the logic.
Except now we only need 2 to the right. And that's where the logic breaks down. So let me, right. If both of those are covered, so we have this is covered here, and we have another one here, we still get 1 gap for the 8, 1 uncovered box. And so, yes, this comes from above, and so the 2 is correct, and we can afford only 1 of those and 1 from below, but that's how many we need. Okay. But actually drawing it this way makes it clear. Then the problem, whoops, that was not good. Then the problem is this 3 here. The 2 gets 2 of those boxes. The 3 needs 2 of those boxes. It can't be satisfied without the budgeting doesn't work out. Let me try one more time. I've got a total of these 3 boxes, these 3 boxes, and this box. And I need to make I need to either cover this 3 or satisfy this 3. I'm going to draw that in multiples. Okay. So I need 2 of the boxes for the A, 1, and S across the middle here. I need 3 of those boxes for this area over on the right. So, and I need 2 of the boxes for the 2 clue. So I need a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes just for those. And in the process of doing that, which that uses up all the yellow boxes. And in the process of doing that, I've made the 3 have to be true, which means I've only got 1 more box to pull in, and it's not enough. I've only got this top box left to pull in. Okay, so it's a mean little bit of counting, or it's do some case analysis, but the counting is easier. So I needed 3 on the right, 2 in the middle, 2 slightly above that. That's 7 out of the 7 yellows. So all of those are accounted for in those places. And in the process of doing that, the 3 can't be covered. There's nobody available to cover it. So it must be true. And now it can't be true. So that was a mean one. Okay, so what we just proved is that we can't have both of these 2 squares covered in crates. So it must be the case that all of these are covered in crates. At 2 in the morning that Ada was making this, it seemed easier to see this. Okay. So now we've got pretty much a wall up here. let me see here. The because we have these three here, because we have these three here, only one of them can come from below. None of them can come from the left or right. They have to come from above or below. At most, one can come from below. And so two of them would have to come from above. And if two of them come from above, then there's no way for the 2 right clue, our old friend, to be true. And you were probably suspecting this all along because they caused all this trouble. But that means that since we can't cover the triplet without stealing from the 2 can't be true. So the 2 is going to be, woo, don't do that. So the 2 also has to be covered. Okay. All right. Let me see. I should have practiced this part more. Okay, here's a simpler deduction I should have done even before that one. Let's look at that box. Where did it come from? Didn't come from the left. It might have come from below. Could it come from above? If it came from above, then this 3 clue would have to be correct, but it couldn't be anymore. That is to say, if this box came downward, there would be no way to satisfy the 3. And so this box must come from below, and that's helpful. That tells us that comes there. This 3 is true. That tells us that these must come over to satisfy the 4s. We finally know where those are coming from. And this one stays where it is. Okay, and now both 4s are done, and so we can cross those clues out. Furthermore, we're left with this 2 being true. Okay. Furthermore, this 4 in the middle of all that muck can no longer be covered, so it must be true. I'm sure that will be useful at some point. And the other 2 boxes in our triplet must come from above, because there's no place else for them to come through. Okay, that's great. Okay, now let's look at this 3. If he's true, then he's going to need this crate, maybe staying where it is, maybe going down. And he's going to need this crate to come in and this crate to come in to fill those spaces. That's the only way he could be satisfied. But if we do that, we have a problem because, remember, we need a crate for one of those. So there's no way for the 3 to be correct. And therefore, it must be covered by a crate as well. Okay, so that's handy to know. All right. Now let's look down below. Let's consider this one clue. Could it be covered by a crate? Well, the only crate that could cover it is coming from below. It can't be covered from the left because that would kill our little 6 situation at the bottom. But why can't it be covered from below, Pavel? What's wrong with that? All right, let me go back. It's hard to remember all the bits you have to do in order. Here's some more squares that can't be covered. Dead air. I'm trying to remember. Oh, okay, wait, we can do some simpler things. That's what we're doing. Okay. This 5. It can't be true because then we would need crates in all of these places to do it, which would also make that 4 wrong. Never mind, they couldn't get all of them, but it would make the 4, this 4, wrong. And so the 5 can't be true. So we can cover it with a crate. And that makes it clear where the crate above it came from. It has to come from above. So we have that. Let's see. All right, I want to look at this 2. If it's correct, then one of the crates it gets is this one, and it needs another one here. And the one I just drew would have to come from above. It can't come from the left because that would mess up our 6 situation down here. So if the 2 right is correct, then we need a crate to its left, or to its right, I mean. And if it's not correct, it needs a crate on top of it. So that's another situation where it's like, oh, these 2, I need a crate somewhere for one of them, and they're going to have to come from above. Okay. Now we have what we need to talk about this one. Don't we? I'm still not quite finding what I need here. The one could still be covered by the crate below it. I'm missing a deduction. Anybody who happens to see it, that would be great. It might be that I don't need it to do the other thing. All right. All right, let's see if we can talk about... no, I can't do that yet either. Wait.
I don't have a good sense for what you want. I mean, there are lots of things we can keep notating, but I don't know if they're useful or not.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to see some suggestions. One that I just noticed is this crate is the one who resolves our yellow 2-1 situation. It can't be resolved from below. Neither of the 2 or the 1 could be covered from below. And so we know this crate's headed this direction. So there's that.
We know that nothing between the 4s is covered. About 6 rows up from the bottom.
We don't know that the leftmost 4 is correct.
Well, if it is wrong, then it's covered, and then that 4 on the right is completely done.
Oh, that's nice. Yes. So that's actually a little bit prescient because we're going to use that same logic somewhere else. Right.
So not necessarily we won't know it's covered. We just know that, oh, no, you're right.
Right.
It's not.
So if this leftmost 4 is correct, then everything from the CG next to it all the way, everything that's not already covered in a box to its right would be uncovered. And if it's not correct, and so the 4th box, in particular, the 4th box for this clue has to be to the left of that 4, if this 4 is correct. And if this 4 is not correct, then it's on this 4. So the 4th box for the right 4 has to be one of these. And nothing else can be covered. So let me get rid of the purple here and put in little splotches. There's a splotch on a box. It's got to go. We don't know where yet. Okay, so that's a nice piece of deduction to notice from across the grid. We will use that same deduction in 2 other places later, but
you can add the splotch on the yellow as well, on the highlighter.
Yep, there we go. Right, that one's not sticking around. Oh, and that's nice, which means he has to start downward. So he has to go at least that far. Okay. I can't quite do what I want here. What I want to do is to conclude that this 3 is true and then do some counting about it. And the problem that I am still having is that I'm looking at the case of this 1 being covered from below.
The 3 cannot be covered from below at this point.
Right, can't be covered from below, because then we would need the B to be covered. We would need this B to be covered, and it would have to come from below, and that would mess up the 1. The question is whether it could be covered from the right. That's okay. No, we can do this. Okay, thank you. So if the 3 were covered from the right, then both of these 2 would have to grab from the left, which means that both of these 2 would have to grab from below, which means our 6 is screwed up. That clear? Okay. So that 3 can't be covered. And so it's true. All right. Let's look at where the 3 are coming from. So that guy, oops, wrong color. That guy looks good. Suppose we can get him. In this area, how many more can I get? Well, I've got one guy, the one who's already started down. I can't bring in either of these. But I've still got this guy. He's always my problem. Right. Okay. I thought I had a cleaner, simpler way to do this, but I'm not seeing it right now. So if I had 2 in the long oval, if it came from, the second one came from here, the 1 would be screwed up, this one. And if it came from over here, the 6 would be screwed up. And so I can't get 2 into the tall oval. I'm getting only 1 out of here, which means I need at least 1 of these. I can't take both of these because that screws up these guys. They can only get 1 from below. So that's my budget. Let me get rid of all of the little marks. I'm going to need this one. And so this is empty. I'm going to need 1 of these to come over and help the 3, and 1 of that new pair of yellow ones also has to go down. And I'm going to use the one who's already started down, this one, as my 3rd one. So those are the ones for my 3. Well, that's interesting because since these guys are fully spoken for, one of them goes under the 3 and the other one goes down to help fill in the 8 row. That means that these 2 both have to come from above. Okay, which means there's a whole bunch more stuff that can't be covered anymore. And I didn't mean to do one of those. Whoops. And so we know that the 0 is true, which means that the 1 is true, which means, come on, really? The 1, really? Come on, the 1 is true, and the 2 is where the box stops. And that 1 is satisfied, and the 0 is satisfied. Okay. Now we've really blocked off the bottom portion of the grid, the bottom right portion of the grid. Okay. Let's see. This box, we've known for a while, has to come from below. So it's coming from here. And that means the one next to it also has to come from below. Okay. Yeah, and I'm still not. I'm still missing why I can't cover this one from below. Which is going to be a problem here. I'm trying to figure out what I did.
Does that highlighted 2 have to be true? No.
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Either it's covered or the N is covered. That's what the highlight means there. So it doesn't have to be true. So let me try the hypothesis, and maybe I will see why I believe this. So suppose that the 1 is covered. It has to be covered from below. It can't be covered from over here because that would screw up the 6. So that's covered from there. Now the 2 can't be true anymore. And so we need a box here. And that has to come from above. And now the 6 can't be true. Now I understand what the flaw was. So it has to come from there. And we just stole both boxes that were supposed to help this. That pair on the 8 row, they need one of those boxes. Sorry, that's the easier way to see this. So let me back up. Okay, let's just think about these 2 crates. We know that the pair above needs one of them because they can get at most 1 from above them. And we know the 6 needs the other one. So neither one of those is free to cover this 2. So that 2 must be true. So there's the 2 being, all right, get rid of this. There's the 2 being true, which means that it needs this box to come all the way down. And it's going to use this box, but we haven't proven that it stays where it is yet. Now we can see that the 1 can't steal the box from below because that would make the 2 unsolvable, unsatisfiable. And so therefore the 1 is true. And so both the 2 and the 1 need this box right where it is. And so that will satisfy both of them. Oh, and by the way, now we know that this 0 is true and satisfied. Okay. Now, okay, so now the exciting part is to realize, I'm going to do it in purple first. That 2 has been sitting up there for ever so long and is now important. It cannot be covered by a box because the yellow ones below it are taken. They're either going down or to the right. They can't go up. So he's true. And we need to end up with 2, therefore, in this column. Where can they come from? Well, obviously this is one of them. And the other one has got to be below it because the ones above it are either the same as this one. They either provided this one or it's going to the right. And so it also needs, therefore, this crate, which means it has to be the one that stays down here, doesn't go up. which means that, come on, it's going to be the one that comes down to here. Which means this one covers him. This one covers him. And this provides the last one that the 3 needs. Just some more green dotting to satisfy me. There. And yes, and nothing more down here can be covered. So those are all green. All right. So things are looking pretty good. Let's see if there's anything else I want to do over there. Not quite yet. I've satisfied, let's see. I satisfied a 2 down in the lower right, so I can get rid of him. Okay. Now I want to jump way over to the other side because there's a deduction that's been sitting there for a while. Well, I guess it really just became visible. Anyway, we're going to pay attention to this 4. And the question is, can it be covered? All right. If it were covered from above, then the 6 up clue would have to be true, which means that everything in this area would have to be true. So this is this box coming down to here, covered. So all of these would have to be true because of the 6, which means that in particular, this box would have to come over to cover that one, which would make the 2 true, and that would be a problem. Everybody follow? So the conclusion of that is that, come on, get rid of things. The conclusion is that this 4 can't be covered from above. So could it be covered from the right? If we took this over to here and covered it up, well, now there's a different problem. We have this 1. He's either got to be covered by a box or he needs to have a box to his left. Either way, this box is heading over that direction somewhere. And now, when you count for the 6, remember the 6? We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we cover the 4, this 4 from the right, then we can't satisfy the 6. So, oops. All right. Yeah. Okay, so the 4 can't be covered from the top, and it can't be covered from the right, and therefore the 4 must be true. All right, now why did I care? This is the granddaddy of all counting arguments. I want to point out a set of clues here. All right. What do they imply about this bottom left area? In particular, what do they imply about the bottom 3 rows of this area? Okay. They imply that we need 10 crates in there, right? because the 4 on the left has already got 2 of what it needs. And so in the purple box, we need 10 crates. So which crates could possibly help us with this little demand? Well, I'm going to mark them with little purple dots. So I've got the 11 that I've marked with purple dots. Sorry, yes, the 11 that I've marked with the purple dots. There's also one more that could possibly get down into the bottom 3 rows, and that's this one up here. But if it came down to join us on the bottom 3 rows, like that, then the 4 would have to be true, and it would not be possible for it to be true. So that upper box doesn't get to help us. So we need 10 in this area, and there are 11 available. Well, that's an inconvenient number. Oh, but wait. There's this guy. He can only be covered by one of those 2 purple dots. That's our 11th guy. So all of the purple ones have to get used for the bottom 3 rows or that circled thing. That's all the purple ones. Okay. So, except for the 2 that could cover that guy who was circled for a while, except for the 2 who could cover him, the rest have to go downward. So this has to go down, this has to go down, this has to go down, and this has to go down. So it has to go at least this far. Okay. And, oh, sorry, this one too. Okay. Furthermore,
Pavel, quick question.
yeah,
That blue dot you put on the farthest left, I didn't think that one was counted as the 11. Was I counting wrong?
do you mean the one that was over here?
Yes.
That one is one of the 11. I get 6 here and 5 here.
Oh, I see. I guess I thought we'd ruled that out because we couldn't move that one down to count for one of the 10 that we needed.
You mean that we couldn't use this one?
Yeah, I don't think that can go to one of the bottom 2 rows where we need the 10, right?
No, we need the bottom the 10 to be in the bottom 3 rows. You're right, it can't go to the bottom 2 rows.
We need 12 in the bottom 3 rows.
We need 10. It looks like 12 because of this 4 here, but he's already got 2 of his over here.
Oh, okay. That was my mistake.
That's why it's 10. Okay, so backing away from all of this purple stuff. Okay, so we get the little rat's tails that I've already drawn. Oh, and one more that apparently I lost. Nope. Okay. That has to go down too. So now, actually I want to focus on this guy. He can't be satisfied from the left, and he can't be satisfied from below, because those all have to get into the bottom 3 rows. So he must come from above. Okay. Oh, at some point I forgot to circle this clue, which must be true, but it's redundant with the other one, so I'm just going to cross it out because it's not important. Okay. So first I want to look at that leftmost box here. Come on. There we go. My stylus does not always style. I don't know why. Okay. As was just pointed out, it can't go any further than where it is. It has to get down into the bottom 3 rows, but it can't skip over the 4 and go down to the O. because the 6 can't be satisfied after that because of this 2 up here, just to recall. So that means he's stopping here. Okay. Let me see. Let me put in some more green dots. Since all of these purple dotted guys can't go up, that means they're not available to cover those spots that I just turned green. So that's nice to know. And slightly more subtly, nobody can cover this S because if they did, it would have to be either from below, where he's now leaving the 3 rows where we need him, or above, where he's not getting into the 3 rows that we need him, and so he can't be satisfied, or he can't be covered. Okay, now I want to go back to the same deduction that got made earlier with the 2 4s across the entire width of the grid. Same kind of thing, but now it's this 1 here, and of course the 2 at the far right. Either this 1 is covered, or the covered thing is to its right. The crate is either it's covered by a crate, or the extra crate that we need is to its right. Which means that, in particular, we cannot cover this spot, and this crate has to go somewhere else. Okay.
Hey, Pavel.
Yeah.
There's a W that is in the 5th row up and about 7 squares in, maybe, that you put a dot over. And I can't figure out why that dot is there.
Let me see. Do you mean this one?
No. It's on the left side. It's right over. There's a box and then an R and then a Q if you go up about maybe 6 columns in.
This one?
Yeah, that one. Why can't that be covered from above?
You have me. Thank you. That's correct. It could be. I overstepped. Good job. I meant that. I was just checking to see if you were paying attention. I do know that this box is leaving. So there's that anyway. Okay, because now I want to talk about this 1. He's running out of places to be satisfied from. In particular, if we put the box here, sorry, that's not what I mean. Right, yes. If we put the crate here, it would have to come from above. So the 4 would have to be right. But because of this green dot, the 4 can't be satisfied. So that's not where the crate goes that the 1 points to. The crate must be here. Okay, and so the 2 must be correct. Now the 1 is satisfied. Where did that new crate come from? It had to come from above. And so the 3 is correct, which means we need crates here. Come on. Okay, and there. And I don't immediately know where either one of them came from, but we'll get to that in a second. So there's that. Let's see. Now, I want to look at this 2 clue. So the 4 to its left needs one more box. It's either on this 2, or else it has to be to the left of that 2. Which means that I can't cover these spots. Okay. Let me see here. Oh, I have a little bit of bookkeeping up at the top that I forgot to do. We have this crate that's sitting here. It's been cut off for a while. And we have this clue that's just sitting there. So the crate has to come from above. And for the other clue, we need another crate here, which must come from the right. Left, I mean. Come on. Somebody should give me a lesson in how to stylus, because apparently I'm bad at it. Okay, so that was just a little cleanup over there. Let me see here. Let's see, a little more cleanup that we can do. If I look at this, I'm sort of looking at this 2 clue. I can't cover this S because it would have to be covered from above, and that would make the 4 true, and that's no good. So I get that. Let me see here. I've got, yeah, sorry, I didn't follow. Yeah, the 3 made a lot of things easier. So we've now satisfied the 3 down, but let's go look at where those boxes come from. The bottom crate has to come from the right. No other way to fill it, which means that the crate to the right of that has to come from above, like that. So there's that. Let's see. Trying to find the thing that
So the B and F on the left side have to go down one more each, right? Because of the
yes, thank you. That's good. Right. We're talking about over here. Yes, they can't stay where they are because we know that the other box in that part is on the 1 or to the right. And so they both continue down. Okay. So there's that. Okay, so way up here at the top, let's go back to that pesky 2. If he's true, then I need a box on the V, which would have to come from above, or sorry, from below, and that would make the 2 down clue in the left column unsatisfiable. And so, because that can't be filled. And so the 2 clue has to be covered. So we get that, and it has to be covered from below. Oh, let's see, way back over on the right, we now know that these things are uncovered and the 2 must be true. And that means that these things are uncovered and the 4 is true. As it turns out, the 4 is already true, so that wasn't as interesting as you might have liked. Oh, and this was satisfied a while ago. Okay. Oh, and we've got this clue that has to be correct now.
So the S and the 4 in the middle on the left.
Yes. Yes.
We know that 4 cannot be covered.
Thank you. That's important. Right. So the 4 can't be covered anymore. And right, nothing can get to it. That's the key. So that's got to be true. And it is. And now the only way to satisfy the 4 way over on the right is to put a crate here. And so that must come from above. And now he's satisfied. Oh, that's the other thing that's been sitting out for a while. There's this 3 sitting way over here. The J in that 5th row, well, let's see. There are several things that can't get covered now. The H can't be covered, and the J can't be covered. And so it must be on the W, whoever it was who told me I shouldn't have put a green dot on the W. Thank you. So that's got to be there and has to come from above. Okay. And now our 3 way over on the right is satisfied. Okay. Oh, and because of that, this crate and this crate, we now know where they came from. And so the bottom one comes from below and the top one comes from above, oddly enough. Okay. Let's see, and that clue has been satisfied. That clue has been satisfied. Okay. So that tells us that this purple dot, remember the purple dots, was not used to cover the crate 2 to its right, 3 to its right. It must go down into the 3rd row, at least. So it's doing that. Okay. And now the 6. Remember the 6? Way down here? Now there's only one way to satisfy it. And it can have a thing here. It can't have the P anymore. It can have the one we already got, then this A, and then those 2. That's the 6. So that finally resolves a lot of dramatic tension. So this comes down to here, and the 1, come on, the 1 is true. Okay. And this comes all the way down to here, and the 2 is true, and this comes down to here, and that's off, and the 6 is now satisfied, and we know that, well, now we can see that this J here in the middle can't be covered. And so the last place available for the yellow 2 on the far right to be satisfied is to actually cover up the 1. Okay. And we still have this little teeny bit of ambiguity down here. Hasn't been satisfied as to whether that, we know it's that crate, but it could either stay where it is or move to the right. That'll come in a minute. Okay. Now let's turn our attention to this one. We're just mopping up now. The X to its left can't be covered anymore. And so it needs a crate over on the T.
Sorry, why not?
The X can't be covered from above because that's taken, from the left because that's taken, from the bottom because that's taken, and from the right because we've already got a path there.
Oh, yeah.
So therefore it must be covering the T. So we cover the T, and it has to come from below. Okay, and that satisfies the 1. These 2 clues up in the upper left can't be covered anymore. So they must be true, and same with the 1. And I get lots of purple dots in here. And both of those 2s, fortunately, are satisfied. So that's convenient. Let's see. This 1 clue in the 6th row can't be covered, and fortunately is true. It's quite clear now that the 4 down clue can't be true. It could only have the F and the H and the crate that's down there. And so this must have another crate, which can only come from above. So there's that. Let's see. I feel like there's a clue that I'm not paying attention to. I already satisfied the yellow 2, and I've I haven't fully satisfied the 4 because I don't know where it is. Oh, okay. All right. So now we have this 1 clue, or its mirror opposite on the other side, that has to get satisfied, and we have this 1 clue that has to get satisfied, and that accounts for the only 2 crates we have left to move. So that means that this must be, the 0 must be true, and spots there.
Sorry, isn't that last one you highlighted already true?
Thank you. Let me back that up. Thank you. Counting. I did say that counting was going to be really important. Because of that 1, and the fact that we already have 1, we know that nothing is going into those 3 squares. And now it is satisfied. And now the 2 up clue at the bottom has only one place to be satisfied from. And so it has to come from the right. And so he's satisfied. And now we still have, it's a little hard to see. That's the 1 crate we still have to move, available to move. And it's got to go up into the 3rd row. So it goes here. And now we know that we can't cover this, but fortunately it's true. And we can't cover this. And the only way to make that 2 down clue be correct is to take our 1 lonely crate down here in the bottom. And he does, in fact, have to shift over into this little square. And that satisfies the 4. The 1 has been satisfied. The other 1 has been satisfied. And the 2 got satisfied. And I think that's total satisfaction. See, that wasn't so bad. Didn't get that out with a straight voice. Any questions?